Live 5 News investigative reporter Carter Coyle has been investigating a lot of stories here in the Low Country since she came to town in 2016, including the story she broke about the Marvin Gethers case. I sit down one-on-one with Carter for a special edition of Quintin's CloseUps. And be sure to download the free Quintin's CloseUps app in your Apple or Google Play stores. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Carter Coyle, welcome to Quintin's CloseUps.
Thanks so much, Quintin. This is great.
Yes, ma'am, indeed. Obviously, you are the all-star reporter here at Channel 5. You've been an investigative reporter here since August of 2016, I believe.
That's right.
What is the biggest difference between August 2016 and 2019?
That is a really good question. I would say that just my experience, and it's amazing what 3 years of focusing on full-time investigative can do for you as a reporter. So when I started here, I had been fill-in investigative reporter at my last station. I'd done some consumer work, but I was really kind of sick of that daily grind of get a story in the morning, turn it, done it. It was just, it's a lot. And after 8 years of that, I said, I really want to do investigative full-time. So it's been kind of up and down, figuring out what's the flow of that, what's the schedule of that. There really isn't always a set schedule of investigative. So I would say that the biggest difference is that we're just doing better work, and that it's not taking as long to churn out investigations because we know where to look for information. We know where to, what agencies to seek out for data, that sort of thing. So I think we're doing better work, more in-depth work, and certainly turning things quicker.
Where did you get your information when it came to the Marvin Gethers investigation?
Well, that was a long one. So that we've been investigating and continuing to investigate that for more than a year now. Yeah. So it all started in March of last year, so 2018, more than a year ago. I, as part of my job, was just looking through court records and just thought it'd be interesting to search who's suing Charleston County School District and for what. And one of the most recent cases that popped up last March was a young man who he and his guardian were suing the district. And I think it was the description. Obviously, the child's name wasn't in the lawsuit since he's a kid and he was a victim of sexual abuse. But there was something about the way it mentioned Dunston Elementary, and something rang a bell. And I thought, I think we've done something on Dunston before, or I've come across that. So really, it just kind of started the rabbit hole from there about what happened at Dunston Elementary. Why was this kid just coming forward with a lawsuit now? And at that point, I think that very day, I asked the district for a copy of Marvin Gethers' personnel file. I saw that Harv Jacobs had reported on his arrest originally in 2016. That was before I was even here. And then I asked the district, just on a chance that this kid in this lawsuit was related to the Marvin Gethers stuff, I asked for the personnel file. And that started basically a 7-month fight to get that file and to get records from the school district that ultimately proved they were connected.
Are you still fighting them today?
I would say that the public records situation at CCSD and then turning over Freedom of Information Act requests and records has gotten a lot better. I think hugely because of this case and for other stories we've done with them. We really pushed to bring out public records. So they have greatly improved. However, I still think, I don't feel as though the case is over. I know that Marvin Gethers is dead, has been dead the whole time we've reported about this. It's not about that. It's not necessarily about holding him accountable. He's gone. But I still think that I know that there are people in the district who were there making decisions at the time. And I don't really feel like the district has held any of those people accountable. And so, yes, we are continuing to push for accountability and a true in-depth investigation about why he was not fired or suspended after he was caught with child porn. It's a mystery to this day, other than it sounds like they just gave him the benefit of the doubt. And I think a lot of parents don't accept that and think that you can't give people the benefit of the doubt when it comes to safety of kids.
And to this day, how many more questions do you have about this particular case?
Good question. So that's one, just the accountability and who knew exactly what when, which we may never know entirely. I'd like to know where the things stand with the state. Peter McCoy started kind of a committee to start investigating this, and that's kind of come at a standstill. Not really sure why. I'm curious why there's been no criminal investigation yet. I think that at the very least, someone should take a look at it and see if there's any sort of criminal charges that could apply to the people who are involved. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer,
Right.
and I'm definitely not a solicitor, so I can't bring charges.
Right.
But I'd be reassured to know if somebody has looked at it from a criminal standpoint, just to make sure that that this doesn't happen again.
And I know during that particular 7-month fight, it was hard for you to even get an interview with Dr. Postaway.
It was, and I didn't think it was ever going to happen. I think one of our other reporters was interviewing her about some back to school stuff, and we as a station, my news director, a few of us reporters sat down and we said, we're journalists, and that's great. We're happy to talk to Dr. Postaway about back to school happiness. Sure. But if we have her as a captive audience, then we have I think, an obligation to also ask her about this Gethers situation that was unfolding at that time. I don't think my first story had even aired yet at that point. And so we were upfront with the school district that we were happy to do the back to school story, but we were also going to be asking questions about Gethers. And there was a little bit of panic, but ultimately she did vaguely respond and kind of say, this didn't happen under me, but it wouldn't have happened under me, etc. But I did not sit down with her until December later that year, after lots of our stories had come out, and she sat down and did answer our questions about kind of where the investigation stood at that point.
Where does the investigation stand now?
As far as the school district is concerned, I'm not sure that there is an ongoing investigation within the school district. I honestly am not sure. And I know that at some point some legislators were drafting a letter to send to the Attorney General's office to ask them to consider investigating. And I think that's all still pending. I mean, these things happen really slowly, and this happened a while ago. So I don't know if interest is dwindling or not, but I think the community certainly is still interested in figuring out what's going on.
When you go out into the community, what do they want to hear from the school district on behalf of this case?
You know, I think that they would like to hear that somebody in the district has been disciplined for it, because someone had to have made these decisions, whether it was on purpose or not. The players involved, it would be nice to know if someone's been disciplined, reprimanded. I mean, anything. I think that's what parents would want to hear. And also, what resources are out there for parents, because we've uncovered other stuff going on at Dunston. We've uncovered a lot of sexual assaults, not just in Charleston County, but in other school districts. And so what's going on here, whether it's relationships between teachers and students, or sexual assaults between students. I mean, it's just what's going on to keep our kids safe in schools. That's what parents need to hear. Any
answers from the school district on that?
Well, they consistently say that they do the best they can, especially with so many students in such a large district. You know, they want to focus on the fact that the perspective, the context is that it's a small number of incidents compared to the total number of students. But for those parents, for those kids, it is a big deal.
Yeah.
And in terms of safety, I mean, I've talked to their safety director before. He seems to be a great guy and really up on kind of modern safety techniques. But I can't imagine the burden of keeping that many kids safe in that many schools, and knowing that any one thing goes wrong, and it really does come back on the district. But that's why we publicly fund education, and that is part of their job.
Now, this is a side note here. I ran into Dr. Nancy McKinley a couple of days ago.
Oh, yeah.
I think she ran away from me when I saw her. But have you all been able to get a hold of her?
I have not. I wrote her a letter or two when we first started uncovering the Gethers stuff. A handwritten letter. I'm kind of old school that way. Like sometimes I think if people see that you're a real person, they might be willing to respond to you. And we emailed her. I think we left messages at the consultant company she's running in town.
Right.
But no, we have never been able to talk to her about the Gethers situation or determine if she knew anything about it when it happened.
Any other school board members who were involved that you could get a hold of right now too?
Well, I know that Elizabeth Moffley used to be on the board, and when I talked to her when this all happened, she said she had no idea.
Right.
Cindy Coates was on the board at the time, said she had no idea. Chris Collins, Kevin Hollingshed, all of those folks who were, I believe Collins was on the board at the time. Kevin certainly, and they say that they were never told. And Michael Miller, absolutely, he was one that we interviewed early on, who was really shocked to see everything uncovered. And so far, we have not found any proof that anyone on the school board was ever told about the Gethers situation. At the time it happened.
At the time it happened. And I know obviously you uncovered a lot of numbers as far as how much, as far as settlements that the school district actually paid out in regards to this case and other cases.
Yes. So there's some weird laws and quirks in place where you can, if you're suing a government entity in South Carolina, you're really only entitled up to a certain amount of money. And so right now the lawsuit that's pending with Mark Pepper, who I know you've talked to, that involves several different potential victims, and his argument is that they should be entitled to more than that statutory limit of like $300,000 because the incidents happened repeatedly and there were multiple layers of missteps that happened. So that case will really be interesting, not just to see if the children and their parents are found to be due any money, but also it could set a precedent for this sort of thing. If it goes to jury, awards them a lot more than the statutory limit, it could actually really change things. So I don't want to get too much into the weeds of the law, but that could be a very interesting case if it ever goes to trial.
And I went back and you just emailed me this just a few minutes ago.
Sure.
The news philosophy that you have. You said this: I really believe in the power of our industry's potential to help make things better. We can speak up for people who need help. We can use our broad resources. Well, how much potential do you have now that you have broken a really big story here in this town?
Hopefully a lot. I think that it goes a long way to earning trust with the community, to see that we're not afraid to take on big entities and big government agencies. And we are not. We have to work. Yeah, clearly. I mean, we just don't. We want to be able to work together with them when we need information, and obviously we want to have a very candid and comfortable relationship. But we're not afraid to step on toes. We're not looking to be friends. I'm sorry that they work for us. They work for the community. They're paid by tax dollars, and when we ask for information that could lead to a big story, then we expect it to be disclosed. And quite frankly, I hope that they have seen, that other school districts, other government agencies have seen that we've done almost 45 stories on the Gethers situation at this point, and that we are not afraid to expose wrongdoing.
And thank God you're exposing wrongdoing. I do it with Quintin's CloseUps as well.
You do?
Oh, thank you. I try my best. Out of those 45 stories, which one of those stories do you still want more questions about?
Good question. Let me think. So we did as best as we could, because there was a lot of people asking who knew what when. We did kind of a recap of that. That still has a lot of answers left. I think we know that the principal was aware of pornography, but there's questions of whether she was aware of child pornography. It's a one-word difference, but that's been her argument. It seems that I wouldn't have kept him in the school if I'd known the pornography involved children. But a lot of people have said, but it was pornography. Do you really want someone working in your school if there's even a question that they were misusing equipment? And all of this has been reported, but there's more. I know there's more to it. Whether we'll ever find documentation to prove it, I don't know.
You don't know. Let me get back here to you, because obviously besides the Marvin Gethers case, you've investigated a lot of stories here in this particular town. What are the current investigative stories you're working on now?
So I just wrapped up one regarding domestic violence, which I really enjoyed looking at that, because it was court data that I got to dig into. I'm a big data fan and data nerd.
I see that.
So I love doing stories rooted in data and transparency. I'm looking at potentially exploring some elder abuse cases, and how frequently elder abuse cases are investigated. If they're reported to DSS, turned over to the police, what happens then? And I'd like to know if all of them end up getting investigated. So that's something I'm kind of playing around with. And we do a lot of we've just finished up a look at travel expenditures in school districts and kind of all over the state. So I would say that's something I'm looking forward to tackling. And I'd like to do more in domestic violence if people come forward and have good stories to share.
And let me get back to you. Obviously, you came to Channel 5, I believe, from Powerhouse Channel 12 in Augusta, right?
Well, I started there, and between there and here, I was in Greensboro, North Carolina for 4 years.
4 years.
So.
You probably know Michelle Kennedy.
Yes. Oh, my goodness.
She's a great friend of mine.
Yes. Oh, I love Michelle.
Yeah. She used to work here at Channel 4 years ago when I was a kid.
Oh my goodness. It's such a small world in a small industry. It seems like there's 1 degree of separation between people. But I loved Greensboro. I met my now husband there, and we always wanted to move to Charleston. So made our way down south, and my whole family has followed along.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah.
Wow. What is the state of broadcast journalism right now?
Well, locally, the research shows that people trust local broadcast immensely, which is awesome. And that's why we do our jobs. We want to be the trustworthy source of news. I think that nationally, journalism to a degree is under attack, under scrutiny. I don't think that's a bad thing if it's founded, but kind of in this world of fake news, the networks and national reporters really have to fight for their credibility. And so I think it makes data reporting, public records reporting, and transparency in your storytelling process even more important.
Sure.
So when we're showing you in a long investigative piece, we did this, we did that, we called them, they didn't answer. That's not just to like show off that we can dial a phone number. It's to show you we really are trying to get answers. Here's our process. It's a transparency thing. And I think that's kind of ultimately the way to win the trust of viewers, whether it's a network level or a local level.
Why do people trust Channel 5 after all of these years?
We are a legacy station here. I mean, anybody would love to work here. I think that a lot of that has to do with the faces you've seen on the air for a long time, and you think, gosh, they must be doing something right. They're still there. They must really like the station. It's been hard without Debbie. We love Debbie. We really miss having her. I have heard one day Bill Sharp might retire. I can't imagine, but if he does, that will be a real loss. But everyone deserves to have an amazing retirement after 4 decades behind the same anchor desk. So I think that Debbie and Bill, and now Ann, Kyle, they all, Aisha in the mornings, I mean, they all have contributed to this like long-lasting legacy of Live 5, and it's a high standard. So I think people trust that we hire the best.
And how do you hope to keep going in the journalism business?
I think that really I've been trying to invest a lot in professional education and that sort of thing. So this year I applied for and I received a fellowship with the Knight Foundation. I don't know if you're familiar with them through IRE, but that's all focused on data journalism. So I've gotten to go to several conferences, some boot camps to learn how to dig into data, which is why I've really gotten a passion for that. But just continuing to go to conferences, learning story ideas. There will always be things to investigate here. I have no doubt.
Especially this time.
I think I have some job security in that way. Not that I want bad things to happen, but if it's a slow day, then I'm a little suspicious because I know something's going on.
That's right. Well, Carter Coyle, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to Quintin's CloseUps.
Thank you, Quintin. It was nice to talk to you for the first time.
Yes, ma'am.
You're welcome here anytime.
Oh, thank you greatly.
Thanks.
Thank you.